The person you've become is a product of your compromises, the small surrenders you made to avoid discomfort, the authentic impulses you suppressed to gain approval, the dreams you abandoned because pursuing them felt too risky or inconvenient. Each time you chose the path of least resistance, you reinforced the neural pathways of mediocrity until ordinary became your default setting. Now you're trapped in a prison of your own making, one constructed not of steel bars, but of comfortable habits and reasonable expectations. The most dangerous part? You've decorated this prison so beautifully that you've convinced yourself it's a home, filling it with distractions sophisticated enough to masquerade as purpose. And while you're busy rearranging furniture in your prison cell, your one irreplaceable life continues slipping away. The clock on your life is ticking right now. Each breath you take is one you'll never get back. Most people live as if they have all the time in the world. They don't. Neither do you. Neither do I. Have you ever woken up one morning and suddenly realized that months, or even years, have slipped through your fingers like sand, that the dreams you once held so dearly have been quietly shelved, collecting dust in the corner of your heart? That the person you promised yourself you'd become seems to be drifting further away instead of... I see nodding heads. I see eyes welling up with tears. I see recognition. The most painful prison isn't made of iron bars and concrete walls. It's built of regrets, of what-ifs, of roads not taken, and the cruelest part, we are both the prisoner and the jailer. Today, I'm going to speak directly to the part of you that knows you were meant for more than whatever circumstance you find yourself in right now. Not because where you are is bad or wrong, but because inside each of us lives an innate knowing that growth is our natural state. Stagnation is the enemy of the human spirit. When we look at a flower that fails to bloom, we call it a tragedy. When we see a bird that refuses to fly, we feel sadness. Yet how many of us have normalized our own failure to blossom, our own refusal to soar? What would your life look like if fear had no grip on you? If the opinions of others held no power over your choices, if the comfort of the familiar didn't lull you into accepting the mediocre. The question isn't whether you have potential. We all do. The question is, how much of your potential will die with you, unused, unexplored, unrealized? There's a voice inside you that's been whispering, perhaps for years, that you're capable of more. That voice doesn't shout, it doesn't demand attention, it gently, persistently reminds you that your life could be different. That voice is your truest self, and it's been waiting patiently for you to listen. Today might be the day you finally do. I'm not here to motivate you. Motivation is temporary. It comes and goes like the tide. I'm here to awaken something in you that, once stirred, can never go back to sleep. I'm here to help you reconnect with the part of yourself that doesn't need motivation because it's driven by something much deeper purpose. The greatest tragedy isn't failing to achieve our goals. It's setting goals so small they don't honor the magnificent beings we truly are. It's living so cautiously that we need no courage. It's reaching the end of our days and realizing we only lived a fraction of the life that was available to us. Let me tell you something that might be uncomfortable to hear. Your comfort zone is not your friend. It's a cage disguised as a sanctuary. Every time you choose comfort over growth, you're choosing a smaller life. Every time you let fear make your decisions, you're giving away your power. Every time you postpone joy and fulfillment for someday, you're betting on a future that isn't guaranteed to anyone. Think about it. How many people do you know who live their entire lives preparing to live? They're waiting for the perfect moment, the perfect circumstances, the perfect feelings. They're waiting to feel ready. That is a myth. No one ever feels completely ready for the things that will stretch them the most. The people who live extraordinary lives aren't extraordinary people. They're ordinary people who made a decision to stop waiting and start living. They understood that life responds to courage, to action, to commitment, not to hesitation, planning, or weakness. Somewhere along the way, many of us developed the belief that life should be easy, comfortable, predictable, but the soul craves challenge. It expands through adversity. It finds its true expression not in comfort, but in overcoming. What if the challenges you faced weren't obstacles, but invitations? What if your struggles weren't punishments, but preparations? What if everything that has happened in your life, the good, the bad, the heartbreaking, the joyful, was conspiring to awaken you to your own magnificence? Here's what I know for sure. You are not your past. You are not your circumstances. You are not your failures or your wounds. You are a living, breathing miracle with the power to begin again, right here, right now. The universe doesn't care about yesterday. It responds to who you are being and what you are doing in this moment. This very moment is pregnant with possibilities, with new beginnings, with the chance to finally become the person you've always known you could be. But it requires a choice. Everything meaningful in life comes down to choices. Will you choose comfort or growth? Will you choose fear or love? Will you choose excuses or results? Will you choose to live by default or by design? No one can make these choices for you. No one can walk your path. No one can fulfill your purpose. That's your sacred responsibility. And it begins with a decision to stop wasting the precious gift of your life. I'm going to share something deeply personal with you. There was a time when I looked in the mirror, didn't recognize the person staring back at me. Not physically, but spiritually, emotionally. I had become a stranger to myself. I was living a life that looked good on paper, but felt empty inside. I was achieving goals that impressed others, but left me feeling hollow. I was existing, not living. Performing, not being. Pleasing everyone except the one person I had to live with every day, myself. The wake-up call came in a moment of absolute stillness. No dramatic event. No life-threatening illness, no intervention from loved ones. Just a quiet moment when the truth finally became louder than the noise. The truth that I was slowly dying inside while pretending to be alive. That moment of brutal honesty led to the most important question I've ever asked myself. If I continue living exactly as I am today, will I look back in 20, 30, 40 years with peace or regret? The answer terrified me, because I knew that the path I was on led to the kind of regret that can never be resolved, the regret of a life not fully lived. That question changed everything for me. It might change everything for you too. We all have defining moments in our lives, crossroads where we must choose between the familiar path of what is and the uncharted territory of what could be. Often we choose what is because it feels safer. But safety is an illusion. The only real safety lies in becoming so alive, so aligned with your true nature that nothing external can diminish your inner light. Let me tell you about someone I met. For privacy, I'll call her Sarah. Sarah spent 18 years in a career that slowly drained her soul. Every Sunday night, she would feel a knot in her stomach thinking about Monday morning. Every vacation, she would dread its ending. Every birthday was a painful reminder that another year had passed doing work that meant nothing to her, but it's secure, she told herself. It pays well. It's respectable. What would people think if I left? How would I pay my bills? What if I fail at something new? The questions that kept her stuck were all rooted in fear. Fear of judgment, fear of scarcity, fear of failure, fear. Then one day, Sarah's closest colleague, a woman in her early 60s who had worked at the company for over 3 decades, retired. At the retirement party, Sarah watched as this woman received a generic cake, a generic watch, 30 years of her life, reduced to a 2-hour gathering that everyone was eager to leave. Later that evening, Sarah asked her how it felt to be retired. The woman's eyes filled with tears as she confessed, "I feel like I just woke up from a 30-year coma. All those dreams I postponed. I'll never get that time back." That conversation was Sarah's wake-up call. She realized she was on the exact same path, heading toward the exact same regret. Within 6 months, Sarah had transitioned to work aligned with her deepest values. Was it easy? No. Was it worth it? Her exact words to me, "I feel like I've come home to myself. I'm no longer living someone else's definition of success." Now, I'm not suggesting everyone should quit their job tomorrow. That's not the point. The point is that all of us know, deep down, when we're betraying ourselves, we know when we're living out of alignment with our truth. We know when we're choosing safety over authenticity. And each time we make that choice, something inside us dims a little. Over time, those small betrayals accumulate. They become the heaviness we carry, the vague sense of something missing, the quiet desperation that fuels addictions, distractions, and numbness. What would happen if you stopped betraying yourself? If you started honoring the whispers of your heart? If you began treating your dreams not as frivolous fantasies, but as sacred assignments? I believe that each of us comes into this world with unique gifts, talents, perspectives, and capabilities that only we can offer. When we suppress these gifts, when we try to fit into boxes too small for our spirits, we don't just hurt ourselves. We deprive the world of what only we can give. Your uniqueness isn't random. It's purposeful. The qualities that make you different, even the ones you've tried to hide or change, are often connected to your deepest contributions. Think about that for a moment. The very things that make you feel like an outsider might be the sources of your greatest offering to the world. Your sensitivity, your intensity, your unconventional thinking, your unusual background. These aren't flaws to overcome. They're clues to follow. Society rewards conformity. From our earliest years, we're taught to blend in, to follow the established path, to pursue the accepted definition of success. We learn to value external validation over internal alignment. We learn to trust others' opinions more than our own knowing. Unlearning these lessons isn't easy. Reclaiming your authenticity requires courage. It demands that you develop an inner strength that can withstand criticism, navigate uncertainty, and persist through challenges. This is where most people get stuck. They glimpse their authentic path, but the moment difficulty arises, as it inevitably will, they retreat to the familiar. They interpret obstacles as signs they're on the wrong path, rather than opportunities to grow stronger. The truth is, anything worth pursuing will test you. It will demand more of you than you think you have to give. It will bring up your deepest fears and insecurities. This isn't a sign to turn back. It's how the journey shapes you into the person capable of fulfilling your potential. Consider the metaphor of a butterfly emerging from its chrysalis. That struggle to break free isn't an obstacle to the butterfly's development. It's essential. The very act of pushing against resistance strengthens its wings so it can fly. If someone with good intentions were to cut open the chrysalis to help the butterfly, they would actually doom it. Without that necessary struggle, its wings would never develop the strength needed for flight. Your challenges serve a similar purpose. They aren't punishments or barriers. They're the precise conditions needed for your growth. But let's be honest, that actually doesn't make the path easier. When you're in the middle of transformation, when you're facing your fears, stepping into uncertainty, choosing growth over comfort, it can feel overwhelming. You may wonder if you've made a terrible mistake. You may long for the safety of what you left behind. This is where faith comes in. Not necessarily religious faith, but faith in the intelligence of life itself. Faith that your deepest yearnings aren't random, but are calling you toward your highest expression. Faith that if you keep taking the next right step, the path will reveal itself. Faith that you have within you everything you need to become everything you're meant to be. This kind of faith isn't blind. It's built through experience. Each time you honor your truth and survive the consequences, your faith grows stronger. Each time you face a fear and discover it wasn't as powerful as you imagined, your faith deepens. Each time you follow your intuition and find yourself exactly where you need to be, your faith. Let me share another story with you. A man I'll call Michael spent his entire life believing he wasn't creative. I'm just not wired that way, he would say. I'm logical, analytical. I don't have a creative bone in my body. He believed this story because in third grade, a teacher had criticized his artwork. One comment from one person at one moment in time, and he built a 40-year identity around it. Then through a series of unexpected events, Michael found himself in a situation where he had to develop creative solutions to a community problem. With no time to indulge his I'm not creative story, he simply did what needed to be done, and something remarkable happened. Once freed from the constraint of his limiting belief, his natural creativity flowed. The solutions he developed were so innovative that people began seeking him out for his creative thinking. When Michael shared this story with me, he said something profound. I wonder how many other false stories I've been living by, how many capabilities I've denied myself because of beliefs I never questioned. I invite you to ask yourself the same question. What limiting stories have you accepted as truth? What aspects of yourself have you disowned or denied? What possibilities have you dismiss because they didn't fit your conception of who you are. Often, our most deeply held beliefs about ourselves were formed when we were too young to question them. They came from authority figures whose perspectives we couldn't challenge. They solidified during vulnerable moments when our defenses were down. And once established, we stopped seeing them as beliefs and started treating them as facts. But they're not facts. They're interpretations, perspectives, stories. And stories can be rewritten. This is one of the most liberating truths I know. You are not confined by who you've been. You are not limited by how you've seen yourself. You are not bound by the identity you've constructed. At any moment, you can begin again. You can choose a new story. You can reclaim disowned aspects of yourself. You can become more whole. The first step is awareness. Begin to notice the stories you tell yourself, the beliefs that feel so solid, so true, that you've never thought to question them, the invisible boundaries you've placed around your life. As you become aware of these stories, hold them lightly. Ask yourself, is this truly mine, or did I inherit it? Does this belief expand my life or contract it? Does it reflect what I know in my heart or what I've been taught to think? This process of questioning isn't about rejecting everything you believed. It's about conscious choice. It's about ensuring that the beliefs guiding your life are ones you've thoughtfully chosen, not ones you've passively absorbed. It's a fundamental truth. The quality of your life is directly related to the quality of the beliefs you hold about yourself, others, and the nature of existence itself. Change your beliefs and you change everything. I want to address something important here. Some of you might be thinking, this all sounds great, but my circumstances are different. I have responsibilities, obligations, people depending on me. I can't just follow my bliss and hope everything works. I understand that concern. I'm not suggesting abandonment of responsibilities or reckless pursuit of momentary desires. What I am suggesting is that there's a way to honor your commitments while still being true to yourself. There's a way to fulfill your obligations that doesn't require the slow death of your spirit. In fact, I believe the people who depend on you deserve the real you. Not a hollow shell going through the motions, but a fully alive human being modeling what it means to live with integrity and joy. What message do you send to your children when they see you settling for less than you desire? What do they learn about their own worth and possibilities? How does your resignation shape their expectations of life? On the other hand, when they see you courageously pursuing growth, facing your fears and expanding your capacity, even when it's difficult, they learn something invaluable. They learn that a meaningful life isn't about avoiding challenges, but about engaging with them purposefully. They learn that growth requires courage. They learn that it's never too late to become more fully yourself. This applies not just to parents, but to anyone in a position of influence, which is all of us. Every day, through our choices and actions, we're showing others what we believe is possible. We're demonstrating what we think a human life can and should be. What are you demonstrating? What vision of life are you embodying? Is it one of resignation or possibility? Limitation or expansion, fear or love? These aren't abstract philosophical questions. They're intensely practical. They shape how you approach each day, each relationship, each challenge, each opportunity. Let's talk about practical steps. How do you move from where you are to where you want to be? How do you bridge the gap between the life you're living and the life you know is possible? It begins with clarity. You cannot hit a target you cannot see. Take time to envision the life that would fulfill you, not the life that would impress others or check society's boxes of success, but the life that would feel meaningful and aligned from the inside out. What kind of work would engage your talents and serve others? What kinds of relationships would nourish your soul? What daily rhythms would support your well-being? What environments would inspire you? What experiences would expand you? As you contemplate these questions, pay attention to how your body responds. When something resonates with your truth, you'll feel an expansion, an opening, a sense of rightness. When something contradicts your truth, you'll feel a contraction, a closing, a sense of wrongness. Your body knows your truth before your mind can rationalize it away. Once you have clarity about what you truly desire, the next step is commitment. Not just intellectual agreement, but wholehearted dedication. A decision that this This growth, this alignment, this awakening matters more than your comfort, more than others' approval, more than the familiar patterns you've outgrown. Commitment doesn't mean you won't have doubts. It doesn't mean you won't face setbacks or make mistakes. It simply means that despite these challenges, you keep returning to your chosen path. You keep realigning with your truth. You keep choosing growth over comfort, courage over fear, possibility over limitation. With clarity and commitment established, the third step is consistent action. Not sporadic bursts of effort followed by long periods of inaction, but steady, persistent steps in your chosen direction. Small actions taken consistently create momentum. They build new patterns. They demonstrate to yourself and the universe that you're serious about change. What small action could you take today that would move you toward your vision? What single step, no matter how modest, would represent a break from the old and an embrace of the new? Don't underestimate the power of these small beginnings. The greatest journeys start with a single step. The mightiest oak grows from a tiny acorn. Your transformed life will emerge from these seemingly insignificant choices made day after day. The fourth step is perhaps the most challenging, embracing discomfort. Growth happens at the edge of your comfort zone, not within it. The skills, capacities, and perspectives you need to create your desired life exist just beyond what's familiar to you. This means you must be willing to feel awkward, uncertain, vulnerable. You must be willing to do things before you feel ready. You must be willing to fail, learn, and try again. You must be willing to be a beginner, to not know, to ask for help. Many people abort their growth because they misinterpret discomfort. They assume that if something feels difficult or scary, they must be on the wrong path. But often, the opposite is true. The discomfort is a sign that you're stretching beyond your old. It's evidence that you're growing. Learn to distinguish between the discomfort of growth and the discomfort of misalignment. The former feels expansive even while challenging. The latter feels constrictive and draining. One leads to greater aliveness. The other leads to depletion. The fifth and final step is perhaps the most counterintuitive, surrender. After you've clarified your vision, made your commitment, taken consistent action, and embraced discomfort, surrender the outcome. Release your grip on how your growth must unfold. Be open to possibilities you haven't imagined. This doesn't mean becoming passive or abandoning your vision. It means recognizing that the intelligence guiding your growth is greater than your conscious mind. It means trusting that life knows how to bring your deepest potential to fruition, often in ways more beautiful and surprising than you could have planned. Think of a farmer who plants seeds. He does everything in his power to create favorable conditions, preparing the soil, planting at the right time, providing water and nutrients, but he doesn't dig up the seeds every day to check their progress. He doesn't try to force the plants to grow faster. He trusts the inherent intelligence within the seed, within nature itself. Your growth follows similar principles. You create the conditions, you do your part, and then you trust the process, knowing that some of the most important developments happen underground, out of sight, in their own time. This balance of effort and surrender, of doing and being, of action and trust. This is the dance of authentic transformation. It's not about forcing change through willpower alone, nor is it about passively waiting for change to happen to you. It's about conscious partnership with the intelligence of life itself. As we move toward the conclusion of our time together, I want to address a question that might be arising for some of you. What if I've already wasted too much time? What if it's too late for me? Let me be absolutely clear about this. As long as you're breathing, it's not too late. Your age, your history, your past choices, none of these determine what's possible for you now. They may shape your starting point, but they don't dictate your destination. These transformations weren't despite the individual's age or history. They were enriched by them. The wisdom, perspective, and self-knowledge that come with lived experience are invaluable assets in the journey of growth. So if you're telling yourself it's too late, I lovingly challenge that belief. It's a story designed to keep you safe from the vulnerability of hoping, trying, and possibly failing. It's a story that protects you from the discomfort of change. It's a story that allows you to avoid the grief of acknowledging time already lost. But it's just a story, and you can choose a different one. You can choose to see your past not as a limitation, but as preparation. You can choose to view your wounds not as weaknesses, but as sources of compassion and insight. You can choose to interpret your failures not as evidence of incapacity, but as step. Every moment is a new beginning. Every breath is an opportunity to align more deeply with your truth. Every day is a chance to honor your gifts, expand your capacity, and contribute your unique light to a world that desperately needs it. I began our time together by speaking about the tragedy of wasted life. But what if nothing is ever truly wasted? What if every experience, every choice, every seeming detour has been preparing you for this moment of awakening? What if your entire life, with all its joys and sorrows, triumphs and disappointments, has been leading you here to this recognition of your power to choose differently?